I want to make it clear immediately off the bat here that I have not planned any of this out besides the fact that I was going to record something about this. Because how do you not talk about this? This being the Royal Rumble 2023. Mostly what you're seeing on screen. Sorry, it's kind of a shitty looking image. You probably wouldn't have noticed it until I pointed it out, but it's a bit low quality. I hope you're watching it on a phone and you can't tell. So, this is going to be very stream of consciousness. Now, wrestling videos on the second channel is actually an interesting thing, because that first Dynamite review got a lot of views. I have no idea why. I think it got like no comments, so I don't believe anybody actually watched it. I refuse to believe. And every time I do a wrestling video, I'm like, comment so I know somebody watched it, and I don't think I've gotten a single comment on any of them. So, but maybe I usually say it at the end, and everybody's gone by the end. I'm going back now to check. Do we have any comments on either one of these videos? We did 2 Dynamites, and then I was like, maybe I'll do it in the future. The last few Dynamites haven't been too interesting. No comments, 0 comments on the wrestling. Maybe because WWE is just so much more popular. More people will watch, but anyway. The Royal Rumble 2023, I guess we are going to talk about the whole thing. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I don't know what this video is. I didn't actually think about tweeting it myself, but I thought somebody had to tweet after that AEW is dead. And it's not literal, but it's also not fair. How do you even express this feeling? I feel like nothing AEW could ever do could equal what happened. And to give context, the WWE is fucking shit, and I hate it. I couldn't imagine watching Raw and SmackDown. They're such terrible shows, even with Triple H in charge, who I guess is marginally better than Vince. It's still completely uninspired. It's way too long. It's completely boring. All the matches are bad. The matches are probably good, but I don't give a fuck, so I'm not watching them. I do still watch all the pay-per-views, of course, because I'm now that level of wrestling fan. Probably definitely not a casual, because I'm keeping up with clips and stuff every week and watching a bunch of other wrestling, so maybe a casual WWE fan. So I'm not like an AEW hater dude. Like, I genuinely wish them to win. So I guess I am more biased in their perspective. It would give me at least a variant. What's a variant? A modicum of pleasure to see the WWE die. Just as punishment for the last 50 years of terrible wrestling. But my God, to have like 50,000 people in a medium that is destroyed in wrestling, where we're in such a mental mindfuck meta-narrative for anybody to actually give a shit about this fake nonsense, to have 50,000 people basically standing in awe when they almost all know what's going to happen, for it to still feel like a surprise, and for it to work, and for it to be 15 minutes. That's the WWE aspect of it. AEW doesn't have the patience for that angle. This felt like a New Japan angle. New Japan Pro Wrestling has like 5 angles a year. There's usually one on the G1 show. There's usually one at the Tokyo Dome. There's usually one at New Year's Dash. There's usually one probably post the Destruction post show. That's when Jay and Gato turned on Okada. Like, there's usually like, there are like mini angles to set up like matches and stuff. And outside of that, it's just sort of like the matches and them being for like important things. So all the matches end up mattering. But like, usually like the biggest angle of the year is in the G1 final show. Like that, the closest thing this reminds me of is the Kenta joining Bullet Club angle, where it kind of is a surprise and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then Shibata just sprints out, and before you can even process, I guess New Japan is the opposite because they did it so quick. Because I feel like in WWE, you have Shibata slowly walk down to the ring, then get in, and so you can like, oh no, is he going to get physical? But instead, he just hits the ring and then hits, maybe it was Kenta he hit first, and it's just like, oh my God, Shibata is allowed to be physical again. And it's a fucking, the greatest fucking thing you've ever heard, you've ever seen, and you can hear the fucking crowd react. That's the closest thing. Now, I'd probably say the Kenta angle is better, but I'm a New Japan mark, so I'm always going to think that. But it's also the visual. It's so much of what AEW doesn't have, and I think it's just better than what AEW has generally. And then I've been thinking about how much AEW is fucking up recently. And not even... The AEW shows are still always good. And it's not even like an expectations thing where you're like, well, AEW should be great every week. It's just... There's a formula, and I feel like this has increasingly become the case since it's increasingly become the case that it's increasingly just Tony Khan booking the show. Because there was some Cody elements, and there was some Kenny elements in the booking. Kenny mostly with the women, and then Cody and whatever he was doing, and you could see his fingerprints on other things, especially with guys he was like close to. There's a formula to AEW now where it's a lot of the time it is just matches, but they don't have the virtue of being tour matches like in New Japan, and it's on TV. It's just like everything that's ever happened with the TNT title is like, it's like matches. And it's like, sure, it's good. Sometimes it's even great. But like, it also is shitty wrestling bullshit where it's just like matches and kind of moments. But they're always small moments. And it's just like, what a moment this is. Also, AEW doesn't have crowds like this. They still haven't done a stadium show, which is, I feel like they will lose wrestlers. Wrestlers will sign with the WWE. And maybe Wrestle Kingdom coming back and New Japan slowly basically coming back in 2023, apparently. The clap crowds are dead for good. We can only pray. Because people want to be in stadiums. It's just the coolest visual of all time. Like, compared to shitty fucking Raw arenas that AEW runs. Even for their biggest shows, and it's in, like, the same venue as a Dynamite, and sure, the stage looks a little different, but it's like, there's nothing bigger than this, and there has to be. They have to have a stadium show, and they have to do it soon. Even Arthur Ashe, which is a kind of a stadium, it's a tennis stadium, even something like that, could help them out massively. But WWE will ram stadium shows constantly. Even when SummerSlam happened last year, and like the other half was empty, and you sort of found out on Twitter afterwards, and it's like, oh, that's kind of lame and pathetic. But still, the visual that you see on screen the whole time of a packed stadium on the hard cam sign, just what a visual. And it really goes back to that of like 50,000 people, or maybe more, I don't know, is there 60,000 of this fucking thing? Just everybody watching the angle afterwards. And the pop, obviously, when Sammy hits him with the fucking chair. I haven't explained this at all, so if you're not a wrestling fan, I don't know, maybe this isn't the video for you. I don't even know where you would begin to explain it. But just the chair shot, and it really is the Jay thing that makes it so great. Because I remember being there for the chair shot, like sitting there watching it and being like, man, that was a pop. But I wasn't really like that even emotionally invested in it. And then when... My fear with this whole storyline, and again, I'm not watching week to week, so I'm vaguely keeping up with shit, was that basically it's going to end up with the Bloodline beating up Sammy. And that's kind of generic and bland. It's just like, oh, the babyface is starting to go over in the heel faction, so we beat him up and throw him out, and then... And it would have been good enough for the angle to have worked. But... there's just, like, to have it be nuanced, even in this fashion, for Jay, and because it's Jay, and I didn't even watch those fucking Roman matches, because fucking wrestling without a crowd makes me want to kill myself, but, like, everybody raves about those Jay matches. I got the gist, alright? Suddenly you realize that this might all be for Jay, and not even, like, that's their intent the whole time. But I realize, like, Jay beating Roman might be the payoff to all of this. I guess to continue with this, but to sidetrack a little bit. Like, the main event of Mania has to be Sammy vs. Roman, and it has to end with the Usos turning on Roman and helping Sammy win. Like, and then they can hug afterwards, they can put him on his shoulders. Like, that has to be... Like, it can't just be like, this is a minute, like, to hold us over to a WrestleMania point of, like, eventually Jay is just going to be against Sammy. Like, it's such a good... It's just so good. The Jay stuff is so good. Like, when he rolls out, because you have the generic option right there. And again, them drawing it out so much. oh, it's just, what a segment. It's just so good. And then the thank you Jay and even the fuck you Roman chants, it's just so good. And it's been a slow build, but that's not even why it's great. Because you just sit there and watch and you say, AEW has nothing like this. And I have since brainstormed ideas that are kind of like this, to the point where it could be emotionally as fulfilling as this. Eddie winning the world title, if it's done right, probably could trump this. And it's very fascinating that the Mark Briscoe stuff happened on Dynamite this week. And it's probably more emotional than the Sammy moment. But it doesn't feel like an AEW moment. It feels like it's something that kind of fell into their lap. And it was so good. Like, just seeing, like... Again, it's sort of the bleeding into reality type thing of, like, Sanjay and Jay Lethal have been the shittiest, boringest, most generic heels for, like, 6 months on this TV show, and you've grown every time they show up. And I like Jay Lethal, and I like Sanjay Dutt, and the big dude's not even that bad. But it's like every time you see him, I love Jeff Jarrett. I love My Way. My World. Not My Way. That's a different song. Probably a better song. But nonetheless. And I do love that too. But just every time it's like, oh, generic heel bullshit. And it's just the worst. It's not even the execution. It's that you know it's never going anywhere in AEW. It's the same with The Firm, though The Firm is much worse because everybody in it is kind of bad, except for the Guns, which is, and I do still like Big Cass, but Ethan Page is just, sometimes you find yourself wanting to like him. I feel like I said this in the Dynamite ones, and then he just does something so generic. And I don't like Stokely at all, and who even else is in that? Lee Moriarty is miscast as a heel, and everything he does makes it seem like he's trying to be cool so bad, but it's failing. Who else is in this fucking group? I don't know. I guess Matt Hardy is there. But even that, it's like a retread of an older storyline with the Andrades. Oh, it's just, AEW sucks. But it's actually pretty good. And it's much better than WWE week to week. But it feels like it's dying, doesn't it? That just feels like the urge. It feels like 2021 is done. It's CM Punk's fault. Actually, it's everybody that's trying to get rid of CM Punk's fault. And it's Kenny's fault. Everything bad in AEW is Kenny's fault because he won't just win. He won't just do it. Why not? Why can't Kenny just win wrestling? He can do it, but he just chooses not to. I understand he's had visa issues the last 3 weeks, but he just needs to come out, win the belt from fucking Max, who is never going to do anything as good as this Sammy thing. I feel like it has to... Tony Khan has to watch that and be like, we have to scrap everything, and we need to do great things. And, like, it's like... The whole last year, like, is Moxley ever going to do anything great? Is MJF ever going to do... And when I mean great, I mean, like, once in a lifetime fantastic. Now, I'm not the biggest Moxley fan. Daniel Bryan, I don't like at all. And Max, I've always perpetually been over. Max had it. He had it. He did that promo, and then he stayed off TV for 3 months, and he came back, and he was a shitty fucking heel again. When he could have been CM Punk 2.0. Oh, 2022. What a year it was for AEW. Is AEW dead? Is this the final cough? Because now all the hardcores like WWE better. Because this is just undeniably better. And it's just the one moment. Everything else in that company is bad. Actually, everything on the pay-per-view is pretty good. But tomorrow night on Raw will probably be good. But the next week, it'll be shit again. And it'll be terrible. And I'll think, I hate this shit. And I wish they would just suck. And then they come out with something great. Every once in a while. Like the Cody WrestleMania thing last year. And that was probably better than anything AEW did all that year. And it was completely coasting off AEW hype. And it's just like... There's a few things that have crippled... Like, that Cody thing felt kind of like the climax of AEW. Like, AEW existed, the hardcores were really into it, and it all paid off when Cody went back to WWE, the big show in town, had his great moment, got his validation. It feels like, well, that's the grand finale for AEW. We don't need it anymore. We got the Cody moment. It was validation for all of it. Let's move on. I just don't know. It just... What a conflict it is. I was just making sure I was recording real quick. I kind of hodgepodge talked about kind of all the stuff I wanted to. The point is, put the fucking title on Kenny and have him do crazy shit like he did in New Japan for the 3 years he was on top. Or just bring Ospreay in or something. Or put Eddie on the fucking show. AEW has momentum. It has some good things. Because I was thinking about this. So the Eddie title journey could be a thing. Could be a moment that could emotionally rival this. The only similar storyline they have is the Elite stuff. And they've kind of been teasing it. But they teased it out for so long. Like, what is Hangman going to do when he actually has to talk to Kenny? Like, get him in the ring and just have him talk and do interesting character stuff with them. Have the Young Bucks be there. Or whoever. Who else is even in the Elite? Keep the comedy guys in the back. We don't need fucking Cutler and Nakazawa out there for these moments. Maybe even leave Don out, even though I love Don Callis. That's the only thing, like, that's a long story that's been building for a long time. But even then, I know what AEW would do. It would, like, build up to them fighting off heels, and then Hangman and Kenny would hug, and they would try and go after the tag titles again or something. And it would be such an... I don't know. There's just it just wouldn't be as good. It just... I don't think AEW... It's not that AEW isn't capable of it, because that does not represent my feelings on the matter. It's just that their way of doing things, the Tony Khan formula, does not allow for that Sami Zayn moment to happen. And I don't think it allows for things as good as that to happen. It allows for things to be as good as that in certain aspects, and even better than it in certain aspects, but it doesn't have that moment. None of this is making sense. But it's like when Hangman won the title, and it was kind of a hodgepodge thing. But if you listen, it's actually very similar to the Sammy Pop, where when Hangman wins the belt, because you kind of see it coming, obviously, and then it's not till the very moment the 3 hits, and the crowd goes, because the pop has already started before then. Just like with the Sammy Pop, when he's rearing back, the pop has started. But it's when he hits and slightly afterwards, and it's when Hangman gets the 3 and slightly afterwards, where the pop gets ginormous. Is AEW's problem that it can't follow through? That could be WWE's problem, because they totally could fuck this up. They could fuck everything up. They could have Sammy and Kevin go for the tag belts or whatever, instead of having Jay and at least on Sammy's side. The biggest travesty was if Sammy isn't on Raw tomorrow, which was probably today by the time you're hearing this. Like if they say he's too injured or something to show up because he took 8 fucking fake chair shots, Sammy has to be on that fucking show. You just need that momentum. And I talked about momentum a lot in those AEW Dynamite reviews and how AEW kind of fucking sucks at it. I don't know. There's a lot of things wrong. Because it's getting to kind of the frustrating point. I guess with Vince, it was just like, you could just see them fucking up a mile away. And it's like, oh, he just doesn't get it. He's just an idiot. And he just doesn't see what could be, or he doesn't like it. And he will force it, or he'll mold the world to his will. Now that Triple H is in charge, the things that should happen are happening. Like Cody did win the Rumble, Rhea did win the Rumble, and like the Sammy turn did happen. But I've always, with Triple H, there's always a chance, and this was sometimes the case in NXT, though. NXT was very predictable also a lot of the time. That, like, it's just surprising in ways you didn't anticipate. In good ways, that last segment is. I feel like AEW has had that sometimes, where it's like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about that, but obviously that's the best way to do things. And I'm trying to think of an example. I feel like it might have been when the JAS was initially formed, and I was like, oh, obviously this is how it all fits together. And I thought that was really clever. Everything that's happened after that with the JAS, I don't know. I don't know. There's just... It's to the point now where they're both kind of equal in frustrating me and being good but in the most part, and great sometimes. New Japan has a lot of moments like that where it's like, especially like when Jay basically joined Bullet Club and became the leader, Like, that was one of the biggest, like, oh, of course that's how everything's going to play out. Because Bullet Club kind of didn't have a leader for a little while, and Jay had just turned heel, and it's like, oh, what a perfect fit. It's just, what the fuck? I feel like I didn't finish that point, but I've forgotten it. I do want to kind of talk about other things. Cody coming out it feels like, and this is another thing that could be genius if it's intentional, but having Cody come out at 30, be in the final 2, with the dude that comes out at 1, and the dude that's been in there for an hour is the giant heel, and the giant babyface comes out at the end. It's like, are you trying to get us to turn on Cody? Are we trying to do the Daniel Bryan Batista thing here? Is Cody Rhodes getting Batista'd? And it's like, there's no way they're this incompetent they don't see it. And them kind of doing it intentionally is kind of genius. But I don't know if they're doing it. Like, and now you're gonna, like, if on Raw tomorrow it opens with Roman and then Cody interrupts to set up the Mania match, like, everybody's just going to be chanting for Sami, right? And it's just like, that's not a good look for Cody at all. It's interesting. And if it's intentional, like, because they have to do the Cody match now because we only have one fucking championship. It kind of sucks for the Cody thing because I was so into the Cody thing. I think everybody was. Of, like, the year-long story of him wanting to get the belt for his fucking dead dad. And after that pop, and my goodness, it's just like, oh, it should have been so perfect. But it's such... And going into the show, and I saw the Twitter thing that the men's Rumble was starting and that the Roman match was ending. I was like, this is fucking shit. I hate everything that isn't a Rumble on the Rumble pay-per-views always. And those middle matches, the Bray match and the Bianca match, were prime examples of that. Nobody cares about anything that isn't a Rumble. I get that you can't literally have it be a 2-match fucking card. But, you can always do like 2 matches before the first Rumble because then they'll have some hype because the crowd won't be worn out. It doesn't matter. Match card was still bad. But like going in, I was like, okay, what was I saying? Cody, like there's something about the Cody stuff because I was like, the Cody stuff is obviously the big story here. I feel like going in there had been a lot of discussion about whether Cody or Sami would win the Rumble, and I was like, fuck Sami Zayn. This stuff is okay, but it's not that, like, it's not Cody level good. But coming out of it, I flopped completely to, like, Sami has to be the match at WrestleMania. Like, this is the hottest thing I've seen in WWE. I don't know, is it the hottest thing since fucking Austin left? I have no idea. I guess it's since Daniel Bryan, but I just discount that because I don't like Daniel Bryan. But it's so hot in a different way. Like, it's not just like the dumb fucking chant, and because a lot of these people think Daniel Bryan is being fucked over. It really is an angle on a different level. So they have to do Cody on the first night, have him fucking lose. But it also means Roman has to divide his time in building up the WrestleMania match. It's just an unfortunate timing for the angle to have hit. Because if they had somehow done this at Survivor Series or something, it wouldn't have been as good because it wouldn't have had as much build-up. But you would have known to have Sami win the Rumble. But I feel like it's like after the Rumble, they're like, fuck, Sami had to win that Rumble. But he couldn't have because the angle happened after the Rumble, and it had to happen after the Rumble because it's the main event fucking angle. The men's Rumble match was kind of... I didn't like it that much. I don't know. It felt weird to me. And funnily enough, I see like the opposite opinion is the opinion that I have. Contrarian once again. Because I really like the women's Rumble because it legitimately felt like a bunch of people could win. And it really was only the 3 that were there at the end with Liv, Rhea, and Asuka. And Ronda if she was in it, but they kind of kept that close to the belt, whether or not she would be in it, and then she wasn't. And obviously Becky and Bayley could have won, but they were eliminated rather early, and I sort of saw that coming. So, there's something to be said about how well this company is done with Liv Morgan. And this is even the meme, and they brought it up on commentary a bunch. In the first Women's Rumble, Liv Morgan came in for 10 seconds and got thrown out, and nobody was even mad. Like, if you would ask somebody then if she would be, like, as over and as great as she is now, there's a 0% chance anyone would have believed you. And I really wanted her to win this match because I like her a lot. And Rhea was obviously the favorite going in. Her coming out at number 1 was interesting, but again, them being the final 2, how cute. There's also an obvious, like, oh, Liv can go up to Charlotte and can be the chosen child versus, like, the problem child thingy. And that's just an easy story about how Liv can't win the big one or whatever the fuck. And obviously Asuka's come back with the face paint, and it's kind of a new gimmick. So she could have won, and again, she could have done the Charlotte match. Rhea is obviously probably for Bianca, though she could do the Charlotte match and finally get the win. Nonetheless, the final 3 and, like, the actual anticipation of anybody could win, which is really a feeling I don't think we've had in a Rumble for, like, 5 years. Maybe the Shinsuke one, but as soon as it came down to him and Roman, you knew he was winning. Everything after that has always been so obvious. Like, the Seth one, obviously Braun isn't going to win. 2020, the Drew one, once he eliminated Brock, obviously he was going to win. 2021 wasn't in front of a crowd, so who cares? 2022, who was it last year? Oh yeah, Brock came out at the end and fucking threw everybody out. And then even before that, 2017, it was kind of interesting that Orton won, and that kind of came out of nowhere. But again, when it came down to, like, Roman at the end and they'd already set up the Taker thing, it's like, well, obviously Randy's winning. 2016 was always going to be Triple H. 2015 was kind of interesting, but they fucked it up by having, because everybody's like, well, it could be Roman or it could be Bryan, but then they got rid of Bryan early, and that's a classic meme. Obviously Batista was going to win the one before that. Obviously Cena was going to win the one before that. And then before that, I wasn't really watching him live. So this is, like, the only Rumble ever where I've watched it live and been like, anybody could win this thing when they got down to the final 3. And it was legitimately great. And I really did want Liv to win at the end. And she didn't, but I wasn't even that mad. Liv Morgan, what a success story. How weird. It also is true that, like, with the... It's interesting because, especially in 2021, there was a lot of hype about, like, guys jumping ship. Because obviously, CM Punk came back and Daniel Bryan jumped ship to AEW. And there was a lot of circulation around Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens' contract towards the end of that year, when they were both really not doing that much. Sami was still doing his stupid fucking conspiracy thing, which is, like, mid-card shit. And AJ was another one, where it was like, maybe they could jump ship or something. And I remember at the time hearing that Sami and Kevin Owens had re-signed and being like, man, that's stupid. Why would you ever do that? Like, you're only ever going to be seen at a certain light in this company, and if you went to AEW, you'd be crazy over megastars. But they both re-signed, and they both... and it's fucking paid off. Look at the two of them. Crazy. Oh, that was a transition into thinking, like, I don't think any top WWE guys are ever going to go to AEW, really. Again, like, could you see anybody really doing it? I really couldn't. And it's always really been the case with the women. Toni Storm left, but she was obviously not doing too well on WWE TV. Ruby got fired, so... And obviously the Sasha thing, but she's not even going to AEW. She's just going to New Japan, it looks like. And Paige obviously probably had a choice. But, like, could you ever imagine Rhea Ripley deciding, nah, AEW is the choice for me, or Liv, or Asuka, or any of the top girls, like Bianca or anything? Is AEW dead, chat? Is that the conclusion I'm coming to through this thing? This has been a craziness. I don't know if anybody's listening. I don't know if anybody gets it. I feel like somebody will say, yeah, I get it, because there is a general trend of, like, AEW is not that hot, but WWE is pretty hot right now. Just start the Eddie shit. Have the Elite on TV. No more Firm on TV. I think I was building up to the Jay Lethal point where I was like, seeing him and Sanjay cry and stuff and be like people was so great on Dynamite. and like everybody hugging each other at the end and crying and seeing particularly like the old heads all that were hugging each other and stuff. That was a great moment that, again, it probably could be seen in WWE if a WWE guy died or something like that. But it's just a great moment. But I feel like it's like a once in, like, next time we see Jay Lethal, he's going to be doing boring fucking heel shit. Heel shit is the worst. Can we get rid of heels? That's the problem. Everybody does generic heel shit and they expect people to give a fuck. Like wrestling is real in 2023. Like, have them be interesting. Just have... And I feel like New Japan does this the best, where they just have their guys be the guys. Like, everything in New Japan feels very authentic. It feels the height of unscripted. Obviously, there's like a gradient, a graph, and highest unscripted is like New Japan. AW is in the middle, and then WWE is obviously highly scripted. Just let people be themselves, I guess, is the point. And cut it out with this fake bullshit. It's so funny, because even that segment had great fake heel bullshit, where, like, wrestling's fake, but you do feel bad for Kevin Owens when he's just getting the shit beaten out of him, and you're like, ew, this is, like, gross and overkill and not necessary and bad, and you have that feeling. I don't know why, but you have that feeling. And obviously it entices you to want Sammy to do something about it. Wrestling's fucking fake. I feel like never in the history of Dynamite has a beatdown made me feel like that way. It was just a perfect convalescence of bullshit for this fucking main event at the Royal Rumble. Crazy shit. A fucking Royal Rumble pay-per-view ended with a fucking title match, post-match angle. And that was obviously the highlight of the night. Can you believe that? I think I'm trying to end this video. The Elite on TV, Eddie on TV. No more Daniel Bryan main events. God, Dynamite the last 2 weeks have just been, like, good matches. And there's nothing I hate more than a wrestling show with good matches. Even Ricky is getting over now. Put him on TV more. Jericho will be a babyface in 3 months again because he's too funny. There really was a 2021 period where every segment on Dynamite was crazy. Like, it would be... Because I remember how they would open the shows. It would open with CM Punk, then Adam Cole would come out. And I don't even really like Adam Cole. But, like, the crowd would go fucking nuts. And then maybe you would have a women's match, and it would be Britt, so the crowd would go nuts. And then, like, it would be a Jericho segment. And then you would build up, and then the Hangman was doing something, or Moxley or something, and it just felt star power, star power, star power. And I get that you can't, like, maintain that for so long without creating new stars. But on Dynamite so much recently, it feels like there's so much downtime with just matches and dudes that obviously aren't megastars. And it's like, we don't have time if you're not a megastar, I think, is the point. No more Firm. That's the go home. That's the takeaway from this video. I think that is it. So if you enjoyed this, I don't know how, but you must have, because we're only 33 minutes in. I was thinking this is like an hour-long video. Incredible stuff. It's given me a crisis of like what does AEW do? I think that was a Raj, whatever his name is, the wrestling journalist dude. He tweeted like, what does AEW have to do? And it's like, and that's kind of what spurred on this thought process of like, I don't know if they can. Like, I don't know if this is ever going to be possible in wrestling again. And it's not because it's the best angle ever. It really is just the 15 minutes, 50,000 people, like, nobody's eyes left the fucking ring. And just watching and biting anticipation for something they kind of all know is coming. And everybody playing their role perfectly. How good was it? But yeah. When is AEW ever going to have the time to do this? They're rushing through everything on those fucking shows. I guess at pay-per-views or something. Put Kenny on TV for fuck's sake. Just have him be the fucking... Kenny Omega should have never lost a fucking match in this goddamn company. He came in and he did jobs immediately. He should have been champion from day one, and he should have never fucking lost. And I don't even like Kenny Omega that much, but it's just so obvious that, like, Kenny died in the Tokyo Dome that day against Tanahashi, and he came back for one night against Ospreay. And now he's dead again. Even the trios matches, which were really good, it's like, well, that ain't Kenny Omega. I just saw him the other day. I feel like he has to hear that and he has to be sick of it. But I don't know, it's just so true. Put Kenny on TV is the takeaway from this video, not get the firm off TV. Put Eddie on fucking TV. What the fuck are we doing out here? Eddie and Kenny. How about that? And he's got to be Kenny for the bells. How crazy is that? Give me a fucking job. Anyway, support links in the description below. Thanks.